I think some people watching this video might be, why the hell are you talking about uranium? I think both of us believe it's one of the best money-making opportunities in the markets today. Justin, thank you so much for hopping on today. You know, both of us recently were talking about uranium on Twitter, and we got a ton of feedback from subscribers. So today I thought it'd be cool for us to do a short little video and show people what's going on with uranium and more importantly, how to invest in it. You know, uranium kind of gets a bad rap. People associated with nuclear bombs and all these type of things and dirty energy, but the reality is it's the cleanest, cheapest, most reliable form of energy in the world. And you know, far from being phased out or going away, nuclear generation, the amount of power being generated by nuclear, it's actually at all-time highs. I guess the only problem for investors has been, as I mentioned, been a bloodbath for the past decade. Things are changing, so why don't you kind of take us through what's going on right now?
What I'm seeing in uranium, the reason it's really captured my attention lately is, so as you may be aware, uranium prices, I think, are at the highest level since 2011 right now, but this is not something I pay a ton of attention to, just because for the average investor to get involved in that trade, it's nearly impossible. So the easiest way for investors to take advantage of this trend is to buy uranium stocks. And when I look at the URA uranium ETF, one thing that stands out is you can see that since its inception, it basically went straight down until the COVID crash, and that's when it really bottomed. And then bouncing off that level, it rallied about, I think, 355% off that level between March 2020 and November 2021. So just a really powerful move off the lows. And I think this is the way I would describe it is a change of character type move. So I think the downtrend, the secular downtrend in uranium stocks that lasted basically a decade, I think that's over. When I look at the chart now, what we can see is, since that huge explosive move off the lows, what uranium's done is basically traded in this wedge, and it's been just digesting those gains higher, which is perfectly normal. It's actually healthy. But what we can see is happening now is that wedge is starting to get tighter. And when the price action on a chart tightens like this, it often precedes big moves. And because we had that trend changing move off the bottom, I think the next move is going to be to the upside. And the other thing I need to point out when we look at this chart is you can just see the massive amount of volume that's come in over the past two and a half years. And so this tells me institutions and just the investor community at large is really, really getting interested in uranium stocks here. So yeah, just a lot to be excited about. When we just look at that chart, we can see the 10-week moving average, or the 10-month moving average, is starting to get recaptured, which is basically the equivalent of the 200-day moving average. So I think this is setting up for an explosive move to the upside. And I want to actually show you another chart that I think traders and investors need to be aware of. So in this chart, we're zooming in. So the last chart was a monthly chart where we looked at how URA had performed since its inception. And this one, we're looking at the weekly chart. You could just see the trend a little bit more clearly. And the thing I want to point out on this one is that we've actually just broken out of that downtrend. And now we're just starting to consolidate above that downtrend line. So again, I think what we're seeing here is another change in character type move. And also on this weekly chart, you could see even more clearly that the bulk of the buying volume that's come in the past two and a half years has been buyers. So overall, just a lot to like when you look at both the monthly and weekly charts of URA.
Yeah, I think we were both surprised about how much engagement the uranium trend gets on Twitter. It really seems to have a loyal following. I think a lot of people realize after a decade plus of pain, it's finally time for this trade. Let me ask you a question. The largest holding in URA is Cameco, right?
Yeah. So Cameco is actually, and I can dive right into the charts on Cameco right now. This is my favorite way to express the uranium trade. And as you mentioned, Cameco is the largest holding in URA. It's the largest publicly traded uranium stock. I think its market cap is about 12 or 13 billion. And if you go on FinViz and you look at the add up the market values of all the uranium stocks that trade on U.S. exchanges, I'm not talking pink sheet stuff or stuff that trades on Toronto. I'm just talking the main U.S. exchanges. I think there's about 9 uranium stocks, and together those uranium stocks add up to a market cap of about 21 billion. So it's smaller than Hormel Foods, and it's significantly smaller than the cryptocurrency Ripple. So it's a very tiny market. And that's one thing that gets me, really excited about uranium, because if this becomes a hot trade, there's only so many uranium shares to go around. It's such a tiny, tiny market. So that is another reason I'm super excited. But as far as it goes for Cameco specifically, what we can see here when we look at its chart is it's leading the charge. It is the strongest uranium stock by far, which is, well, I think some people might find that interesting because, when a lot of people think, the strongest uranium stock, like why wouldn't it be one of these smaller, more speculative names? But Cameco is actually the safest, most liquid name, and it's leading the market. So you can see here on the weekly chart, it's broke its downtrend 2 weeks ago, and didn't even come back and test that downtrend line, which tells me that buyers are stepping in. They're really excited to buy the dip, and so that's the weekly chart. It looks really good. It's ahead of schedule relative to what we're seeing in URA and just uranium stocks in general. And then when we look at this chart here, so in this chart we can see the performance of Cameco versus URA, and we can see it's just been trending higher since 2018. So it's a long-term outperformer against the broad uranium market. So yeah, I mean, really, there's a lot to really be excited about, just the uranium trade in general. And I think if you're dive into this market, you want some exposure, Cameco is just the most obvious way to play it. It's the safest, it's the strongest. What's not to like, really?
Right, because when you think about just back to your market cap statistics, you have a company that makes up 12 or 13 billion dollars, 60% or so of the publicly traded stocks. When you're a money manager allocating to this space, there's really only one stock you can buy. And I mean, look, just so folks know, Cameco, it's really the ExxonMobil of the space, right? Largest, highest grade deposits in the world. I think what makes me super bullish on Cameco specifically is that it's dominating the contracting cycle right now. So the most important thing for uranium price and uranium investors to pay attention to is really when nuclear power plants start buying uranium, right? They're really the only buyers of uranium. And every time they come back into the market, start signing contracts for uranium, that really drives prices higher. Cameco, I think there was 110 million pounds or so of contracting done last year. Cameco dominated 2/3 of the market. This year it's the same. Contracting is on track to break last year's record. So really this is the time, right? This is the time after a decade of pain, when the number of uranium stocks went from 500 to under 50, I think. Here we are. Look, before we close out, you want to have anything else to say?
I've been following the uranium market for a while, and I think the fundamentals, the story of uranium was always exciting. It's the greenest, most energy dense form of energy we have, and there's the construction of uranium, nuclear reactors have been ongoing and trending in the right direction. But I think what's really exciting about right now is now the technicals are also aligning. So I think it's just really setting up for a really exciting speculative opportunity. And, I think it's an area of the market that investors who, everyone's focused on AI and tech stocks right now, but I think this is an area of the market that both traders and investors should be paying attention to.
I was only talking to a money manager in London today who said he's investing in this trend. Risk Hedge, we've been investing in it since I think August 2018 was the first time we wrote about it. Something that we're going to be talking a lot more about on Twitter. So you can follow me at Disruption Hedge. Justin, what's your Twitter handle again?
JSpit Trades. So hopefully I can put that on the screen so people can find us.
Great. Well, look, we're going to be talking a lot more about it, and reach out with any comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks. See you, Stephen.